Ayush, can you see my screen? Ayush, you are muted, so I cannot hear you.
Hello, Dr. Fahim. How are you doing today?
Hi, Ayush, I'm good. Can you please check if you can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Great.
Amazing.
So we wait for a couple of minutes and then we can start.
Perfect, perfect. And Ryan, if you don't mind, would love to have the small demo on how to sign up for Answer This being dropped in the chat. Yeah, we'll wait for maybe 5 more minutes to let everyone else join.
Yeah, sure. We can wait for maybe a couple of more minutes and then we can start. Ayush, I'm putting the slides in the full screen mode and just you can confirm if it's working all right or not.
We're having a slight, okay, there is a slight issue. I think you might need to change the screen that you're sharing after you make it full screen.
Okay. Can you see the slides now?
No, we just see your browser.
Okay. How about now?
Yeah, it's not full screen right now. So I
Okay,
think you just have to display it as full screen, go to screen sharing, and then select the full screen version to screen share.
you still cannot see the full screen?
No.
Okay.
Hey everyone, if you haven't done so, I would recommend creating an Answer This account so you can follow through with this webinar. And then shortly, we're going to start as everyone joins.
How about now, Ayush? Can you see the slides?
Yeah, we might just have to do it non-full screen, it seems like, because
Let me try once more, because can you see me, the slides changing?
yeah.
Okay, it's still not in full screen.
No, unfortunately. I think you just have to change it, change the screen sharing option so that it's sharing the full screen version instead.
Mm, mm. But I don't see any option as such, because it's showing me two options, which is to share the whole screen or to share a window.
You can share the whole screen, then I think that would work.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying, but can you see the slides now?
Yeah, do you mind making it full screen?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Excellent. So I think we're all good, and I think we can start. Um, so hello everyone, and good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending upon the part of the world from where you're joining. Firstly, I want to thank you all for joining this session, and apologies for the initial glitches with the sharing of slides. So I'm Fahim, and today we are going to look into this topic of from research idea to publishable research paper. More specifically, we will uh, talk about the following. So we'll start with that. What exactly is a research gap, and how we can identify a research gap. And then we'll see that how we can identify relevant research papers, what is a citation map, and how we can draw a citation map for the identified papers, and more importantly, what information we can extract from that citation map. Then we'll talk about the extraction of data from papers, which is primarily applicable if you are in a stage where you are doing literature reviews. Next comes the part which is again very crucial, and that is that how AI tools can assist you in doing literature reviews. Number 6 would be the AI assisted scientific writing. That, for example, there are a bunch of tools I'm sure all of you would be aware of. And the point we're going to focus here is that how we can use those tools in writing research papers. And this would be followed by paraphrasing of scientific writing. So, of course, I receive a lot of these questions that, okay, for example, what are the tools that I can use for paraphrasing, and more importantly, if I paraphrase my writing, would it be flagged as in plagiarism, or it won't be flagged as in plagiarism? So that is certainly a point we will focus on. And lastly, we'll talk about reviewing your paper. So once you have written your paper, I'll go through a guide that when you submit a paper to a journal or to a conference, how exactly your paper is reviewed, and they would give you an idea that, okay, for example, what are the key parts which you need to keep in focus when writing your research papers. So the first point is about identifying a research gap. Now, depending upon which stage of your research you are in, for example, if you are a master's student doing research, or if you're a PhD student starting your research, or you're a postdoc, or even a seasoned researcher, it's very important that you know that what is exactly the gap you're trying to fill. So for that, you first need to know what exactly is a research gap. So a research gap is essentially an unexplored or underexplored area in existing research. So for example, if you see that there is a particular gap in terms of knowledge, and you think that you can create knowledge to fill that gap, so that is what we refer to as research gap. Now, many a times what happens is that students, they ask, okay, for example, how to identify a research gap. And many a times there are students who are completely blank when they start their PhD or when they start their master's by research. For them, this is certainly very relevant. Now, you cannot, of course, there are some kind of parameters or some kind of contextualization when you start your research journey. So, for example, you already would have a research domain defined. For example, you might be working in bioinformatics, or you might be working, for example, in the area of machine learning, or you might be working in climate change analysis. So that particular area is definitely already defined, and you as a student, when you start research, you would know that. Then the next phase comes in, that with whom you're doing that research. So obviously, if you are a student in that case, or even a postdoc in that case, you would be working with a supervisor, with a professor. Now, that further brings it down, the area of your research. For example, if I am a professor and my area of research is machine learning for healthcare, in that case, obviously, your background need to align with my background in order to proceed with that research. And the reason is not that it is kind of like that every professor want to do that kind of research. It's because the professor has expertise in that area, and he or she would only be able to supervise you if you want to work in that particular area. So the domain in which you're working, for example, machine learning, that is already defined when you put your step into the research world. Then comes with whom you're working, that further narrows down your research topic. After that comes the finding more niche gap, or finding more kind of specific area that, okay, this is where I'm going to work, and this is where I will explore further. So the point I'm trying to make here is that sometimes students, they would ask, okay, for example, can you share a research gap with me? Now that is a very, very broader kind of question, and it's very difficult to answer it. So you need to go through this stepwise process in order to reach that exact research gap that you want to fill through your research. Now, there are different types of research gaps, and it's important to understand this. And the reason is that once you understand this thing, then you can look at the existing literature from a particular perspective. So, for example, knowledge gap. So as I mentioned that, for example, there is no or limited research on a particular topic. Like, for example, if we say that nobody has looked into the impact of climate change on global economy, and you think that there is no knowledge as such in this area, so you can study this impact through different methods, and you can fill this gap. The second one is evidence gap. So what this one is that your research contradicts existing research. For example, you think that the existing findings on a topic are not correct. Okay. And then what you do is that you conduct research which contradicts those findings. In that case, also you are filling a gap, you are bringing in new knowledge. So that is also possible. In that case, for example, if you have good enough evidence that the way these findings are, they are not correct, and if you do research with the correct set of tools, you might be able to contradict those. In that case, the knowledge that you come up with, that would be an evidence gap you are trying to fill. The third one is methodological gap. So for instance, if you feel that there are findings and the way those findings have been created or generated, you are doubtful about that the gap, that there is a methodological gap, that this research has not been conducted in the right way. In that case, also you can fill a gap. So for example, if there are findings that are only based on data collected through interviews, and you think that this topic is better covered if we do, for example, if you collect data, for example, through questionnaires or through observations, in that case, also you're trying a different methodology to fill the gap. Similarly, there is another like kind of empirical gap, and which means that there is no experimental data on a topic, and you want to conduct some experiments to come up with data, and then based on that data, you come up with new knowledge. So and so on and so forth. For example, practical knowledge gap, theoretical gap, and so on. Now, the point you need to understand from this slide is that you need to make sure that you know these different types, and then you jump into literature and reading papers to identify a gap and make it more concrete, and then you fill it through your research, whether as a master's student, as a PhD student, or even as a seasoned researcher. Now, coming to the point of how we can identify research gaps. So it's not a kind of a black and white thing that whether it is a gap or is it not a gap. So don't take it that way. Um, of course, it's one of the most challenging part in at least in a PhD journey, the initial 6 months or so when you try to identify the gap. Uh, Now, as we are jumping into more kind of modern ways of conducting research, so there are certainly tools, and that tools can help you in terms of identifying research gaps. So if you can look at this one, for example, this is a feature offered by AnswerThis. And if you look at this, so you can go there to their main page, and then they say that, okay, they have this thing called Research Gap Finder. And you can give it a query, and then it can identify different kind of gaps for you. Now, certainly these are not the kind of, I would say that writing on the wall that, okay, for example, it has given you this gap and that is it, and that you need to take forward. You need to put your own mind into it, your own context into it, and then you can take it forward. So essentially, these are giving you the initial ideas of what you can take on in your PhD. Now, the next point we want to cover is about identifying relevant research papers. So, as far as identifying paper is concerned, there are many different avenues through which you can search and you can identify papers. For example, many people they use Google Scholar. Then, based on your domain, it can be more specific. For example, I, who comes from computer science and tech background, the relevant databases for me are like IEEE Explore, Scopus, Science Direct, and so on and so forth. Someone coming from maybe medical background, PubMed is a relevant database for them. So as a researcher, you need to identify that, okay, for example, which are the relevant areas for me where I can look for papers. Generically, mostly people use Google Scholar, but then there are certainly more specific databases depending upon the study area or your domain. Now, one thing is it's very important that when I was doing my PhD, I used to do it very the traditional methods: go to Google Scholar, put some keywords, and then it gives you papers, or go to IEEE Explore, Scopus, and so on. Now things have changed. Now we have more modern ways of identifying papers. And when I say modern ways, that means that we can do the same thing, but more efficiently with the help of tools. So for example, this one, deep research. So it's a feature that is in this tool, AnswerThis, and later on, I usually give you a demo of how exactly this works. But this tool can certainly help you in terms of identifying papers more quickly. For example, I'll tell you, when I was doing my first literature review, it took me around 2 weeks to only identify around 75 or so papers for my literature review. So that is certainly 2 weeks is a very huge amount of time, because I have to go through all the different kind of filters and then coming up with the right set of papers. But now with these modern tools, you can certainly do that whole thing of what took me 2 weeks. You might be able to do it in a day. Now, the third thing is about citation map. I'm not sure how many of you have already tried this thing, but this is definitely something very interesting. I have seen it in many different tools that you can have a bunch of papers, and then the tool, it will help to draw the citation map. Now, why is it important? What do we get out of it? So let's suppose I have around 200 papers. I throw it into a tool, and then they draw this citation map for me. Now, there are really interesting things here that we can find out from it. So let's suppose these 202 papers that I have, what I'll do is that when I draw citation map, it can show me that, okay, for example, amongst these, which are the latest papers in terms of date, which are the papers which are most cited. Okay, so that means that which are of high quality papers. And then it can show me, like, for example, which papers are more connected with each other. So you can identify the clusters that, okay, for example, this is one cluster, this is another cluster. And more importantly, it can tell you that which are the top contributing authors. So as a researcher, for example, if I have identified 200 papers, and then I know that, okay, for example, in this research area, based on that, when I identify the top contributing authors, I get to know that, okay, these are the people around the world which I need to keep an eye on. That what are they publishing? Because in research, it's very important that you keep yourself up to date. For example, you don't want to work on any research piece which is already, let's suppose, published, right? So in that case, these citation map, it reveals very interesting kind of things to you about the bunch of papers you are looking into. And also, it's very interesting. Like for me, when I was a PhD student, I already knew that, okay, for example, in my research area, who are the top researchers? Okay, and what kind of work they are doing. So I would keep on looking into their papers, the new papers coming in, and through that, I would find out that, okay, for example, what kind of new research they are doing, how they are presenting their findings, and so on and so forth. So it's very important to know that who are the top researchers in your research area. Now, this is another thing, like, for example, okay, if I identified that these are the 10 or so researchers who are the top researchers in my research area, then after that, there can be another filter that I can put in. So, for instance, I'm not sure that how many of you are aware of this, but there is this extension, citation. So when you go to a Google Scholar, so I believe all of you would know that Google Scholar is where you can see the profile of a researcher, that what papers the researcher has published and so on. Now, if you add this extension citation to your Google Scholar, what happens is that it will show you that where the researcher is publishing papers. So for in terms of journals, we have Q1, Q2, Q3, and so on. So if you're publishing more in Q1, that means you're a good researcher. And if you're publishing in unranked or in Q3, Q4, in that case, it would show that your work is not of that high quality. So when you go to the profile of a researcher and when you do this thing, so it clearly shows that what is the percentage of papers that the author is publishing in top journals. So sometimes we see that the number of papers of a researcher is very high. They're publishing a lot of papers, but they're not publishing in good quality values. So it's very important that, of course, it also comes from the lay culture or from the culture of the professor you're working with. But mostly around the world, a researcher is considered a good researcher when they're publishing in top quality values. So this is certainly citation, something that you can try and see that, okay, for example, if there is a researcher, what is the quality of their publications. Now, the next thing is about the citation map, that how you can draw one. So there is a quick demo and we can have a look at it.
And by the way, guys, the webinar is going amazing. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A section. Really excited to take those on in the Q&A time.
Thank you, Yush. Sure, to all the participants, please put your questions in the chat, and at the end of the session, we'll be happy to answer those questions. So as if you have seen this demo, so I put one of my own paper, this one published around 6-7 years ago, and then it showed me that which are the papers which are connected to this one. So I can clearly see that, okay, for example, what work has been done on the top of the work I did and what work was done previous to the paper that I have written. So it's, in a way, it's very interesting. It's kind of, you can see the where your paper, where your work stands with respect to other papers in that particular domain. Now, next comes the extraction of data from papers. So this is certainly very relevant for anyone who is doing literature reviews. Now, back when I was doing PhD, in the first year of my PhD, I did a literature review. And what happened was that, as I mentioned, that I identified around 75 or so papers, and then I had to read every single paper to extract data. So what you see on your screen is an Excel sheet that I made at that time. So you would see like publication type, venue, citation count, the method that they have, principles, and so on and so forth. Now, this thing, it takes a lot of time. Reading every paper, extracting data of your own interest, and putting them in an Excel sheet. Obviously, it's a more traditional way of how data can be extracted from papers. But now, when you want to do the same thing, it could be rather quicker. Of course, the depth would not be to that level, but something that could be done more efficiently. So, for instance, let's suppose you have 75 papers for your literature review and you want to extract data from those papers. So you can see that how this feature of extraction data, it can help you to do the same thing, but what perhaps took me around 2 weeks, the same can be done in a matter of minutes. Let's have a look at how it works. So you see here that it extracted the data from the papers and then it put it in a tabular form, very much the same the way I have done it manually in putting data in an Excel sheet. And here is another interesting thing, that you can extract whatever data you want to. Like, for example, if you are more interested in extracting the methodology, you can click on methodology. It will extract data of methodology from the papers. If you are interested in what kind of research, future research work is being mentioned in those papers, in that case, you can click on future work and it will extract the data. So it will keep on adding those columns depending upon what kind of data you want to extract from those papers. And there is one other thing you can also do, and you might have seen it in many different tools. Again, this is something I would say a modern way of doing work, a more efficient way of doing research. So here you see again, this is something that Ayush would show you at the end. But here you see that there is this feature called Chat with PDF. Right, and you might have seen it in many different tools. And what it does is that you upload this bunch of papers and then you ask a specific question. For example, your question could be that I want to know that what kind of data sets have been used by these 75 papers. So manually, if you go through that, it will take you a lot of time. But with this kind of feature, put the question in, the data comes out of all those 75 papers in one go. Okay, now coming to literature reviews. Now, for the benefit of all literature reviews, you might be aware of that it's sort of looking into the existing literature and trying to understand it from different perspectives. Now, the perspective depends upon what kind of literature review you want to do. So, for instance, a systematic literature review, that's a more rigorous, more comprehensive kind of review, and you identify the papers in a certain way. You extract data. You sort of look at things in a very detailed manner. So that is what is a systematic literature review. Perhaps it's someone that takes the largest amount of time. The next one is a scoping review, where you try to understand a particular topic in a more kind of say superficial way, in terms of identifying the key concepts, the data sources, type of evidence, and so on and so forth. The next one is integrated review. So in this one, you look at the literature from a more critical point of view. You look at the paper and then you reflect on it, that what are the strengths of this paper, what are the weaknesses of the paper, and how weaknesses can be improved or addressed. Then the fourth one is narrative review. And in narrative review, we try to synthesize the literature to identify patterns, trends, and gaps in the literature. In historical review, as the name shows, we look at things from kind of that how it evolved over a period of time. In meta synthesis, that is more relevant to when we are focusing on qualitative research. Now, for literature reviews also, there are many different kind of support and tools available. I would suggest that these tools need to be considered as in kind of a starting point. You cannot say that, okay, for example, a tool would do the entire literature review for you, because that's not the point of literature review. Point of a literature review is to help you understand and dive deep into that particular area. So let's have a look at that how AnswerThis can help you in literature reviews. So you see here they are offering a dedicated feature for literature review. So let's suppose my topic is security vulnerabilities in big data systems. And then there are these amazing filters that, okay, what kind of things you want in your literature review, what you don't want in your literature review. And you can make all this selection, and then yeah, so here you see that it has generated a very interesting literature review, in the sense that one good thing you would see that the statements are supported through credible references, right? This is one thing that where ChatGPT goes wrong. At least the initial version of ChatGPT definitely goes wrong, that it creates those fake references which do not exist. But with the tools like AnswerThis, you see that the initial version of the literature is created and the statements are supported with credible references. So I'll mention it again that take it as a starting point, take it as an initial draft. It should not be considered something as in final output, or as in absolutely not something for submission to a journal or to a conference. The next point is about when you have all that data and then you want to write a research paper. Now, one of the things that I have seen is that as a student, I also struggled a lot when writing papers or writing thesis. It's difficult to write. At times you sit for hours and you don't end up even writing a single sentence. So these are some of the tips that I would suggest that you can follow, and hopefully it would help you to write papers and write your thesis. So for example, I personally used to block like the first 3 to 4 hours of my day. If I start my day at 8 a.m., then I will, until lunch, I'll not do anything. I'll only write. Doesn't matter it's perfect or it's not perfect, but I'll write. The second point is about perfection. So this is again something many people, when they write, they keep on trying to write very perfectly. My suggestion is write, even if it's not that good. You can refine it later. The third one is about exemplar papers. Now, this is something which really helped me. So, for instance, if I'm writing a paper, I will already identify at least 5 to 6 papers that are kind that I can take it as an example. That, okay, for example, it could be that, okay, I'm submitting to this particular journal, and from that journal, I will pick 3 to 4 papers. So it helps me in terms of the formatting. It helps me in terms of how to formulate my ideas and put it in the paper. The next one is to note down your thoughts on your phone. So especially at the earlier stages of your research, if you're doing PhD or master's by research, so where thoughts are more kind of confined and it's more focused, in that case, you definitely helps that when you are thinking about your research, something comes to your mind, try to note it down, because otherwise it fly away from one's mind. The fifth point is to turn off all distractions. Now, this is something very important. In today's age, there are so many distractions. One of the biggest distraction is your phone, right? Anytime something pops up and you go and you say, okay, let's have a look. So my suggestion would be that keep your phone aside, put it on silent mode, turn off your notifications of emails and so on when you are trying to write. The next one is do not leave writing part at the end of your PhD. This is something very important. In some cases, what students do is that they do not write, and then they leave all at the last, 5 or 6 months, and then they don't have the bits and pieces to collect. My suggestion would be to write as you go and you work in your PhD or any other research thing you're working on. So, for example, in my PhD, I consistently published papers all over. So each year I would publish a couple of papers, and then by the time I reached my thesis, I already had all the content written. I only had to write the first and the introduction chapter and the conclusion chapter. The seventh would be the focus on parts. Now, one of the things that is very important, that a research project is kind of, at times it becomes very boring in the sense that you have this big piece. If you're writing a paper takes in itself, like, let's say 6 months, and another 6 months it takes in the publication process. You don't have much to motivate yourself. So the way it should be is that you focus on individual parts. That, okay, for example, today I'll write a good introduction section, or I'll write a good abstract for my paper, and that way you would feel more accomplished and motivated. You can use university resources if they provide one, like, for example, proofreading services. And the next point that helped me is about the 5-second rule. So when you want to do something, for example, writing, just, within 5 seconds, you have to take an action. If you leave it beyond that, our mind essentially distracts us and keep us away from doing things. And lastly, you can definitely use tools these days which are available in a bunch, and that can help you to sort of refine your writing. Now, here there is this AI writer which sort of helps you in pushing your writing forward. So we can have a look at it, that how it works. So here, if you see, the main point is that when you want to start writing on a blank page is a bit difficult. But if you have something to start with, then it becomes a bit easier. So if you have a topic that you're writing on, in that case, you can certainly take help from it. And again, I would say, don't use it blindly. Do not use it as in the whole that, okay, for example, it has written, that's it. No, this is just a starter. It is helping you to start writing. And the seventh point I want to focus on is about the paraphrasing. So as I mentioned earlier, that writing in the first go and writing perfectly is very difficult. So what we can do is that we can write a rough draft, and then we can refine it. And one of the way to refine is that you can paraphrase. Now, what is paraphrasing? It's sort of, you reword or you rephrase what you have written. And for that, again, there are many different tools that are available which can help you to convert your rough draft into a very refined draft. And here, if you look at this demo, for example, I have written a paragraph. What I do is I copy paste it here into AnswerThis, and I click on rephrase, and then it all the way generates a very good draft for me. And you can also, like, you have all these different filters, that what should be the length, the variation, you want more fluent, more formal, academic. So it can help you to refine the draft that you have written. And the last point I want to focus on is that when you write papers, try to put yourself in the shoes of the reviewer. That, okay, I've written this paper and eventually it's going to go into the hands of a reviewer. So how the reviewer will look at this paper, and what would, how he would evaluate or review the paper. So here is how papers are reviewed. The first point that would be focused on your paper is about the significance of your research. Is this research important or not? So for instance, if you justify that your research is important, it can have a very significant impact. On whom it would have an impact, in that case, the reviewer would buy into the research that you have conducted. The second point is about novelty, that is this research new or not. So if you have done very important research, but that research is not new, then you don't have any new findings, you're not even kind of contradicting any existing findings, you are not sort of negating, or you are not even strengthening the existing findings, in that case it means that this is something redundant. We already knew this thing, although it's important, but we knew this thing. So again, it would not, your paper or your research would not fly. The third thing is the methodology. So if the research you're doing, it's important, it's new, but you're not doing it in the right way, again, that would become a question mark for your whole research. So for instance, if you are collecting data, let's suppose through questionnaires from irrelevant people, so although your research might be new, it might be significant, but you're not doing it in the right way, the data you might collect might not take you anywhere. So again, the methodology part is also very important, that you do it correctly. Number 4 is verifiability. And nowadays, it is becoming more and more important that if you're putting something in your paper, so it's significant, it's novel, the methodology is correct, but can other researchers verify it or not? So for instance, in the field of technology, computer science, what we do is that we provide a replication package with our paper, so that if somebody wants to run our source code and produce the same kind of results, they can do it all the way. And number 5 is about the presentation, that your paper need to be presented in the right way. And this is something super important. You know, that is where the first impression of the reviewer is established about your paper. So you need to make sure that your paper has, you know, the right set of figures, the right set of tables, the format is good, and so on and so forth. So if you cover all these parts, in that case, it is very likely that your paper will fly. So that is it from my side. And now we can have maybe a 10-second break, and certainly a new flavor of presentation, and that would come from Ayush. So Ayush will show you that the things that we talked about, how you can do it more efficiently through a tool. So Ayush, it's over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the amazing presentation, Dr. Fahim. I'm really excited to show everyone a demo of AnswerThis and how they can accomplish, you know, everything that we've talked about sort of in the entire presentation using the tool itself. So I'm going to quickly share my screen and then take everyone through a demo of AnswerThis. And then we can all take questions together at the end. So I'll quickly share my screen here. I'll try to be quick. And I'll try to show step by step how one can start using AnswerThis. So obviously the first step is you sign up, you create an account. We actually offer a free trial, so you can go in and evaluate the service before you click and upgrade. We have a prompt helper. Now the prompt helper is a really good way for you to get guideline on how you should structure your prompt. So after you log into AnswerThis, you'll see a screen like this. You can click the prompt helper, and then it will give you a lot of guidelines as to what you can do with AnswerThis. So things like identifying gaps in literature, finding relevant papers, etc. After you create the prompt itself, you can add in other information that you'd like to include, right? So I want to identify gaps in literature, and then I want a topic proposal as well. Then when you click more filters, you can actually adjust things like the minimum number of citations you want the sources to have, or the databases you want AnswerThis to cover. So by default, it does Semantic Scholar and OpenAlex, but you can include it to do PubMed and Archive as well. You can actually add in double checking of citations as well. So a lot of people complain that, you know, ChatGPT makes up fake citations or citations are not accurate. In AnswerThis, you're actually able to just enable double checking of all citations. Then you can actually edit the date as well, press submit search. And this is the sort of result that you see. So as you notice, AnswerThis has added a topic proposal at the end, but above there's a quick research gap analysis. And everything that AnswerThis says is cited. So you can export this now as a PDF, as a docx, just so that you're able to use it. You can also change the citation styles. So we have a couple of different citation styles to choose from. And then you can minimize or expand. So if, let's say, you're reading the result, I just had that maximized. I can maximize the sources as well. Now, when it comes to here, I'm going to make this screen smaller. When it comes to any citation, you can just click it. It's going to show you exactly where in the answer the sources it is. And then you can keep saving things to the answer this library. So I just clicked the citation there. I went in and I clicked save to library. And now the source is saved to my answer this library. You can also go and do a table view, and then the extract data functionality is available here as well, where you can either give any custom instruction for what column you want to add. So a column could just be, the number of participants in the study, or you can choose from one of our given ones like research gaps, methodology, etc. So as you can see, it has added a research gap column now, and you can keep adding as many columns as you want. The cool thing is you can even export everything as a CSV, so you can view it in Excel. Now, there's another feature that is very useful for PhD students and honestly researchers of any stage, which is the bibliometric analysis. So what I had done previously is I can actually go back and show you. I had selected all the papers and clicked bibliometric analysis and answer this. So now we have, a lot of different interesting graphs that we saw, like the number of authors in a year, the number of citations, average per year, etc., which you can directly include in your research paper as well. Now, if any citation is missing, if it's incomplete, you can always refine it. But if you want to share your review with others, just to get feedback, just for them to read it, you can both share it publicly and privately. So if you share privately, you're able to copy the link. You can also share it publicly with everyone else if you found something cool and you want all AnswerThis users to see it. And then we have it on the homepage. So it's a cool way to get featured. It's a cool way to get your name out there and show everyone a cool thing that you found. Now, Dr. Fahim already went over the AI writer, but there's a couple other functionalities that are really, really interesting in here. So you can actually continue writing. If you write your entire literature review and there's an area in which you want to add more information, you can just select that area, go to AI edit, go to continue writing section. You can give it more instructions if you want more sources, and it's actually just going to make that paragraph longer and add in more information into it. So you can keep adding more information in each section. So as you can see, it sort of took that paragraph and made it better. There's also rephrase or paraphrase, as we've just seen. A lot of the times you need to sometimes paraphrase information. You can just select any piece of text and click paraphrase. Now, you can generate questions as well. So let's say you want to generate questions about something. You can just select that bit, go there, click generate questions. And now you can see that, every research question that we needed to explore has been added right after the paragraph. And you can add in citations from your library, etc. The library can also be used as a source for your literature review. So, as we had seen earlier, you could select different databases. You can actually deselect all of them and just choose the library itself, which means that the library is going to be used as the place where information is added from. Now, if you want to search for more citations and add them very quickly, there's the search papers feature in the AI writer. You can just go click search papers, enter in your topic, and then just keep adding citations. And then as you're doing all of this work, it actually keeps getting saved automatically, sort of like Google Docs. So we've already gone over the outline. You can create an outline. And at the end of this call, I'm also going to share this link with you guys, so you can actually walk through the demo yourself. But you can add in an outline, and then when you go to full outline to answer, you can actually expand that outline into a literature review as well, which can act as a starting point for your research journey. So I'll go to full outline to answer here, and that will expand the entire thing. Now, one interesting thing in AnswerThis to take a look at is projects. What projects do is they give you a new library and a new search history for each thing that you're doing. And it helps in categorization. So a lot of the times, a lot of different researchers will have multiple different projects for multiple different parts of their research. And I have already a research project there, so I'm going to go select that, go to the library. And in any paper that you have in your library, you can go chat with it. So I can ask something like, what are the research gaps in this literature? So what are things that I need to be careful of when I'm reading this literature? And as you can see, it has given us a very detailed answer. And you can see the PDF on one side, the answer on the other. Um, and then you can even ask follow-up questions. So you can say something like, hey, I want a comprehensive table that shows all the quantitative data that is present in the paper. Let's say you want to just extract all the quantitative data that the paper has and view it in one go. You can actually use this to achieve that. So as you can see, it has added a response for us, and at the end you can see all the data that it's adding as well, just extracted from the entire paper. So now I'm sure that you can already probably starting to imagine how advanced this can be if you use it correctly and if you use it in the right fashion. You can accomplish a lot of different purposes using this technology and make your research journey a lot simpler. You can also search for papers. So there's a search paper section. You don't have to worry about adding Boolean queries or anything like that. You still have all the amazing answer this filters. Like you can select for journal quality, you can select for publication date, the citation count, etc. And then you can also keep saving papers in the library from this section. Now, I'll quickly go over citation maps. Citation maps is probably one of the most important things that you can do to make your research quality better, because using citation maps, you can see all of the papers that are relevant in your field, but at the same time, you can see the most cited papers, the most connected papers, and even the authors who are publishing the most, whose papers are getting cited. So it's not only that their publication number is high, it's that people are citing their papers quite a bit as well. And you should probably take a look out for those authors and track which papers they're publishing. They might be super relevant to your research topic. Now, the last thing, or the second last thing, the last thing is deep research that we'll go over is diagram maker. A lot of the times, PhD students and professors, anyone honestly, wants a visual way to conceptualize and think about information. You can do that by going to the diagram section, choosing from one of the diagrams that we have available, adding a prompt, and then clicking generate diagram. So it's going to add in a diagram for us that you can save, export, etc. Now, very quickly, I'm going to show you deep research, which is probably the best way for a researcher to find all the relevant papers and have a deep, comprehensive review of their field. I recommend asking a slightly broader question about your research. You select deep research, you click enter, and answer this will just give a wonderful, very, very detailed review with citations that exactly meet your topic. So the deep research is probably one of the most useful tools that there is. And yeah, that's sort of a quick guide over onto this. Now, I'm happy to go into questions with Dr. Fahim.
Thank you, Ayush. That was very good. The one thing for the participants, I understand that it's quite a lot of knowledge coming, in one go. So I believe that the webinar is recorded, and all of you, to all the participants, it will be shared. So I would suggest that later on you sit and then you try to digest all the information in a slow manner afterward. And now Ayush, we can take questions. So I'm not sure. I mean, there are so many questions. Some of them I see that they are relevant to the tool, and some of them are more research focused. So I'll try to focus on the one that are research focused, and then I'll leave the rest to you. So one of the question is that how can I publish my work for free on the platform? Now, I'm not sure what exactly is meant by a platform, but generally, if you want to publish your research for free, in that case, there are several journals that are free of cost, so you don't have to pay anything. For example, a lot of Elsevier journals, they are free. If your work is of good quality, you can submit it there, and you can publish there without any cost. Ayush, there is another question that is a student is asking that I'm a student, and would there be any discount available for the students to use AnswerThis?
Yeah, so I'm going to send an email to all participants after this, especially all the people who have joined AnswerThis. they're going to get a discount code for signing up. So yeah, for students, if you want a discount code, we usually don't do discounts, but uh, if you email me, we're happy to figure something out and make sure that you get access. I also saw questions about the pricing of AnswerThis. So AnswerThis is $35 a month, but we offer a 3-day free trial so that you can go check out the platform before committing to any purchase. But we do think it offers a lot of value for students in what they can achieve using the platform itself.
Okay, great. Another important question I see that comes quite often is about the question is, can you touch base on the ethical considerations using AI and how journals are asking to declare the use of AI in your research? So this is certainly a very pertinent question. What I will suggest is that what you can do is that wherever you are submitting your work, most of the journals and conferences these days have their declared policies and guideline as to whether you can use AI tools or not use AI tools. And if you're using any AI tools, then you can certainly declare that. So my suggestion is that wherever you're submitting, look at their policies and guideline. The second angle is that I would strongly suggest you that all these tools are there to help you, to facilitate you. It should not hit your learning curve, and you should not use them blindly. Even when the outputs are very good, you still need to have a look at it, double check, make sure that everything is correct and as per your need.
And I see a question here that says, how long does AnswerThis deep research take? Does it ask follow-up questions? ChatGPT deep research takes about 30 minutes. So AnswerThis deep research is significantly faster because it's focused on research and it's sort of specialized for research. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. And if it doesn't understand your question, or if it doesn't find sources on your question, instead of just hallucinating and not giving you an answer, it will actually ask you to broaden your query and suggest a couple of queries that you can ask instead. So it's going to follow up if it doesn't understand the question. But usually, on most topics, it's able to go in and find information rather quickly.
Excellent. So another point somebody asked about the certificate, and I believe that all of the participants will receive certificates of participation.
Yep, that's correct. So anyone who attended the webinar today is going to receive a certificate.
Okay, there is another question about the question is that by using AI to identify the research gap, how we can be sure that our research result later can be truly novel. So certainly, as I mentioned at the time of identifying research gap, is that it's a starter and you need to dig more based on the initial outputs given by tools like AnswerThis. So for research gap, when you have that initial clue that, okay, for example, this is where there might be a knowledge gap, you need to dig deeper into the literature and see that whether it really is the case or not. If you're confident enough and you have discussions with your team, like your professors, and you believe that there is a gap only, then you should jump in and fill that gap. And obviously, in that case, when you come up with your findings, those certainly would be novel.
Amazing. Let's see. I think we've covered more or less all questions. Can I select my research topic using AnswerThis? What I suggest is, very similar to what Dr. Fahim said, you shouldn't rely on an AI tool to do all the work for you, but you can certainly use it as a guide. If you look at deep research, essentially it gives you an idea of all the papers that exist for a particular topic very specifically. So what you can do is generate a research gap and then type it in deep research. If it comes back with a lot of papers, you can see what the papers are about and where the gap is between all those papers. But if it doesn't come with any papers, then you truly might have hit a unique area where nothing has been published yet. Now, it's also interesting that you probably don't want to publish where there's no work done at all. There's probably no work done for a reason. You want to go in a slightly unexplored field and see what the previous paper said and build on top of that. But what AI does is it gives you more of a leverage and a way for it to be easier for you to accomplish these tasks.
Excellent. So I think we have covered the questions. There are certainly some left, but we are almost at the end of time that we have allocated for the webinar. What we can do is that we can take these questions and we can get back to you either through a blog, or we can write back to you through an email list or through LinkedIn post. So hopefully we'll try to get all the questions answered. And I particularly want to thank you all for joining. I also want to thank Ayush and Ryan for joining in and giving you all the amazing demos. So thank you all. Thank you, Ayush. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you. If someone has more questions, I have actually put my email in the chat. You can go email me with any follow-up questions. And it doesn't have AnswerThis doesn't have a LaTeX editor right now. It's something that we're working on, but you can export bib files. So there's a BibTeX export functionality. And yeah, there, if there's any feature that you want to request for AnswerThis, we're actually very user-led. We love getting feedback from the users. You can certainly email me, and we can implement that feature as well. So thank you so much. I really respect everyone's time. Thank you for coming and joining, and yeah, have a good rest of your day. Hopefully you consider subscribing to AnswerThis. In either ways, you can always reach out to us, and we can support you in your research journey.
Thank you so much for giving the Ayush.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you. Bye.